Hello, everyone. I'm James Cavuto from Neurotech Reports, and we're here at INS 2019 in Sydney, Australia. And I'm here with Marc Russo. Marc is the Congress Chair for this year's meeting.
Yes, Jim.
And also Director at Large for the International Neuromodulation Society. Marc, first off, I want to say congratulations. Excellent meeting. I was present at yesterday's innovation session, which I thought was very well done. Good collection of startup and more advanced neuromodulation firms. Were you involved with recruiting some of the companies that presented?
Yes, Jim, that's right. So the innovations has been a feature of INS now for a number of years, and part of the key is to really do three things, if you like. One is to be able to have an exposure platform for early venture neuromodulation companies, so that they can get out there what they're doing. They can express interest to other people that may want to be clinicians to partner with them, or also for venture capitals to actually be interested in assisting them on their journey. But above and beyond that, the other thing is to give information to clinicians, to entrepreneurs, to people who are working on their own projects. How do they go through this very complicated sequence of events? How do you go from clinician with an idea to patenting? How do you go from establishing a company? How do you go to handing off something? These are an educational component that we build into it in terms of our keynote speeches that are mixed in with the early presentation work.
Mm-hmm. Any themes from yesterday's innovations meeting that you think are worth mentioning?
So the theme of it was disruption, and how neuromodulation is going to disrupt not only the existing neuromodulation landscape, yes, but also how it can disrupt healthcare in other areas. So we were looking at disruptive technologies, both how do they change the landscape, and then what might be some of the disruptive technologies that are out there.
Great. Can you talk a little bit about the neuromodulation landscape here in Australia? How is it different, say, from the U.S. market? What's the level of awareness among clinicians, among patients, among payers for neuromodulation therapies?
There's a few features that make it unique. I think certainly on the access to therapy side, we are probably running at about 1/3 the access level per 100,000 of the population. So it is more restricted. It's not restricted in terms of governmental access and healthcare access. It's restricted in lack of awareness. And that's one thing that certainly in Australia we need to do better, and I think is done better in the United States. Separate from that, though, I think is a traditional medical regulatory environment amongst physicians, is that the government tasks us with behaving responsibly and doing good clinical medicine, and we're not restricted to having to define neuromodulation into certain indications. So neuromodulation is defined for the management of pain and spasticity. It is and organ dysfunction. It is not defined into individual single conditions that need individual clinical trials. So as clinicians, we're given a greater amount of freedom in order to be able to identify a patient who may benefit and then delivering that therapy. The third thing I'd say probably is that here in Australia, we are, for whatever reason, early adopters. And so we will look at technology and evaluate that very quickly and embrace new technology. And that's actually led to Australia, both in terms of clinical trial research and then development, to actually be punching above its weight in terms of the size of the country, which at 25 million is small, but not insignificant in terms of the global neuromodulation world.
Interesting. One of the factors that's impacting the neuromodulation market in the United States is the opioid addiction crisis. How much is that an issue here in Australia, and are there factors like that that are helping to raise that level of awareness for neuromodulation?
So if you ask the public, they'd say it's not really an issue. This is a United States problem. If you go to the data, if we remove the issue related to fentanyl, the illicit fentanyl component that luckily we don't have in Australia, you take that out of the equation and then you stratify it per 100,000 of the population, we have exactly 50% the death rate from opioids minus fentanyl. So it is a serious problem in our country and not adequately recognised, I would say, by the public, less so by clinicians, and not adequately, could even be better recognised by governmental agencies. Neuromodulation provides a distinct aspect of being able to address this issue. If we've got ways to control pain, that means people do not have to go on to conventional or pure mu opioids in the first instance, then that is an absolute boon and an absolute salvation for patients.
Absolutely. All right. Well, so we're in the middle. Actually, today is the first day,
Yes.
opening day
Yes.
of the Congress. Some very provocative sessions this morning and very informative sessions. Anything that's surprised you about this year's meeting or this year's agenda or some of the attendees?
Well, look, we've got a great range of topics that are being done. I mean, I think if even I just take this morning as an example, you know, we had Dirk de Ridder talking about a commonality of dysfunction amongst different brain conditions, and that if we address this in a way that we have not thought of before, we might be able to be more powerful in how we do things. Immediately followed by Neil Grossman, who is showing us the potential for able to non-invasively treat with brain stimulation. If we can take these two things together and combine them in a future world, I think it opens up massively the potential to help people.
Okay. Well, Mark, thank you very much for your time, and congratulations again on another successful INS conference and a very, very successful and informative Innovations Day yesterday.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks very much.